Alright, I've been wanting to drive this Mazda CX-30 for a long time, and now I've actually driven the turbo and this naturally aspirated version. I have to say right off the bat, going through these corners, this thing handles just as well as my Mazda 3. At least it feels like it handles just as well. They've done a phenomenal job at making this little CX-30 feel sporty, especially without the turbo. We've got the Skyactiv G 2.5 liter 4-cylinder engine, and like I've mentioned, this is the non-turbo. It makes 191 horsepower and 186 pound-feet of torque. If you step up into the turbo, you get 250 horsepower and 320 pound-feet of torque when you use premium fuel. Otherwise, you're getting 227 horsepower and 310 pound-feet of torque. Exact same numbers as my Mazda 3 turbo. And if you're new here, I own a Mazda 3 turbo. I have for the last 4 years. I absolutely love that car. And this basically feels like the exact same thing, except you sit a little bit higher. Now, interesting, the turbo I got to drive a couple months ago was exactly the same spec as this, pretty much. On the turbo, you get a few more features, and I'll go over that in a sec, but it's kind of funny. These look almost identical. I could almost use the same B-roll, but there are some slight differences. So we'll go to our favorite little spot and take a look at the outside, and I'll kind of go over the differences between the turbo and the non-turbo, and we'll just take a look at this CX-30 in general. Okay, so this CX-30 has a starting price of about $25,000 in the US and $29,000 in Canada. Not a huge difference in price between the US and Canada, so that kind of makes this kind of a bargain in Canada. Now, this particular one is called a GT here in Canada, and in the US, this is called a 2.5S Premium. Top trim without the turbo engine. So the GT in Canada starts at $38,000 or $32,000 in the US for your 2.5S Premium. Now, the turbo I got to drive a couple of months ago was called a GT Turbo in Canada and a Turbo Premium Plus in the US, and that was $43,000 Canadian and about $37,000 in the US. All right, sorry, I just had to move quickly because someone came and parked beside me, and I do not like talking in front of people with a camera. Still feels pretty awkward to me. Anyways, here is the front end of the CX-30. Very similar to the turbo I had, though there are differences. On the turbo that I drove a couple months ago, you do get a blacked out grille, which I think makes the car look considerably better. But otherwise in the front end, there's really not much of a difference. Now, a big difference between the Mazda 3 and the CX-30 would be the turn signals. They are lower like the CX-50. In the Mazda 3, they're just built up in the headlights there. These are adaptive headlights, and they will turn and move as you turn your steering wheel. They're really great, and they're very, very bright. If you're wondering about this color, it is called Aero Gray, and this is a newer color for the CX-30. To the side here, this is where you can tell it is basically a Mazda 3 on stilts, though there is a ton of plastic cladding, as you can see. I think on a premium or like a high-end trim, it'd be nice if they painted that. I don't really think you're taking your CX-30 off-road too much, so I don't know if you need all that rugged plastic. That's just my opinion. But anyways, those are 18-inch blacked out rims, and then you do have blacked out mirrors. Some people don't like the chrome trim on the CX-30 and the Mazda 3. I don't really mind it, but I think this would be pretty easy to just get wrapped. And then the big added benefit is it's just a lot easier to get in and out of the CX-30 than it is a Mazda 3. Mazda 3 just sits a bit lower. This has 8 inches of ground clearance, whereas a Mazda 3 has 5.5 inches of ground clearance. And then let's take a look at the back, and I think the design has aged pretty well. Still looks really good to me. Because this isn't a turbo, you just get smaller tailpipes back here. That's really the only big difference, and you just don't get a turbo badge. You would get a turbo badge right here. Not a huge deal. Otherwise, the car looks basically the same as the turbo. And is there a difference in how the exhaust sounds? Well, let's see. I'm also a big fan of these pulsing turn signals. I don't have this on my Mazda 3, but the new Mazda 3s do have pulsing turn signals as well. It's time to take a look at your design approval of the CX-30, and well, 842 votes came in and 74% of you approve of this design. If you want to participate, just follow me on Instagram or subscribe here on YouTube. All right, welcome to the Mazda CX-30 interior space, and this is a really nice space to be. Very familiar to me. A little bit different though. The dash is slightly different up here, and when you buy the red Nappa leather interior on the hatchback Mazda 3, you get red all the way up here. For some reason, in the sedan and in this CX-30, they don't put the red on the dash. Not entirely sure what the thought process is behind that or why it's different, but it still looks really nice. I love the nice red stitching through here. That's pretty classy and sporty looking. Really happy with this interior for the most part. As someone who's lived with basically the same interior for the last 4.5 years, I still think it holds up really well compared to the competition. It's really nice that we have functional physical buttons for our HVAC controls. Everything is kind of a button. There isn't a whole lot of touchscreen functions in this vehicle. Anything you really need that is key to the vehicle is a button. Whereas recently the new CX-5 pictures just came out and they've decided to go with a giant iPad in the screen and no buttons. And I'm not entirely sure why, because I feel like Mazda owners really appreciate functional physical buttons and stuff like that. So I don't understand why they decided to go that direction, especially when other brands are kind of coming back to buttons. Cost cutting, I don't know. Anyways, you don't have to worry about it in the CX-30, at least for 2025. Still a great interior space. One thing you might not like is all this piano black around the gear shifter, but yeah, it's gonna get scratched up, but it looks really nice right now and it's new. Steering wheel is terrific. This one does have lane centering though, and it works really well on the highway, I'd say. Out on country roads, I find it struggles to find the line sometimes. It's not as confidence inspiring as like Hyundai, Kia, or like Honda's lane centering systems, or obviously like Super Cruise and Blue Cruise with Ford and GM, but it is just a nice steering wheel. It feels pretty premium. We've got a nice blend of digital and analog gauges for the driver's display. Love the look of this. There's not too much you can do with this digital display. There's just 3 different menus, tells you your fuel economy. Now in this non-turbo, we do have the upgraded 10.25 inch screen. Normally it would be an 8-inch screen, which is similar to what I have in my Mazda 3. You can get the bigger screen now in the newer Mazda 3s. This definitely is more substantial than what I have. When I get back into my Mazda 3 after driving this, I'm like, oh man, my screen is tiny, but I'm not someone who really cares too much about screens. But this is nice, and it has a really good 360 camera, and there's a couple different views you can get. Unfortunately, in the States, I don't believe you can get the 360 camera on a non-turbo trim. In Canada, though, we can get it. This CX-30 does have heated seats, and we do have a heated steering wheel. And like all Mazda heated steering wheels, it's just warm in this area. They do not heat the top and bottom of their steering wheels. Now, this one also comes with the power tailgate, which has a button at the left side here. You can press that and it will open up the tailgate. Now, like a lot of Mazdas, these seats are on the firmer side. They feel more comfortable than mine because mine have been more worn in. They feel a little more plush. The driver's side seat does have lumbar support, which is quite nice. The passenger does not get it, but the passenger can raise their seat and push it back and forward. This seat is powered on the driver's side, but it is all just manual on the passenger side. I really like that we do have a traditional gear shifter. This does just have one drive mode, sport or off. And then we do have our rotary dial here, which I tend to use most of the time, but it is nice that this does have wireless Apple CarPlay, wireless Android Auto, and it is touch, which is good. It is a little bit far to reach this, so you do just kind of end up using the rotary dial most of the time. But if you want to touch the screen, you can touch the screen. So this is different than the Mazda 3. The center console, it's a little bit of a different design in the middle here, and it works a little bit different as well. I think it feels a bit higher quality than in the Mazda 3, and it's just a little bit deeper as well. Now this does have the upgraded Bose audio sound system, and it sounds great. Then we've got a nice sunroof up here, and yeah, it's a good little interior to be in. I don't feel that cramped. I'm 5'10". Maybe someone over 6 feet might feel a little cramped. This CX-30 also comes with a nice heads-up display, and something I've noticed is that Apple Maps integrates with the heads-up display now. That's really cool. I think this happened in 2024. Definitely don't have it in my Mazda 3. This is really nice. Okay, so like I've mentioned, I own a Mazda 3. And an interesting fact about the Mazda 3 versus the CX-30 is that the Mazda 3 actually has more cargo capacity. Weird. Behind the second row, they're pretty much identical, 20 cubic feet. I think you get 20.2 in the CX-30 and 20.1 in the Mazda 3. But when you put the seats down, you get 47.1 cubic feet in the Mazda 3 and 45.2 in the CX-30. Now you may be wondering, Ian, why do you have a suitcase in your trunk? Are you going somewhere? Well, this ties in today's sponsor, Exter. Exter recently sent me their travel pack vacuum kit, which is perfect for me because I travel a fair bit for work and usually only bring one small carry-on. With the travel pack vacuum kit, you can triple your packing space in any travel bag. It's modular, it comes with an air pump that can charge via USB-C, and it can compress 15 plus clothing items per vacuum bag. Here's what this looks like without the travel pack vacuum kit. Now, Extra is also known for inventing the first trackable wallet, and they also sent me this Extra Wallet Pro. It's a really nice, fancy looking wallet made with premium Italian leather that can hold up to 14 cards. It has quick card access, built-in RFID, which blocks and protects you from data theft. I also have the Finder card inside my wallet because I'm an incredibly forgetful person and leave my wallet places all the time. With the Finder card, you can locate your wallet with your iPhone very easily. Use my code Ian McAlpine at partner.extra.com/Ian McAlpine or click the link in the description of this video to get an additional 10% discount on top of any web sales that are currently happening. So I'm sitting in the back of the CX-30 now. And first things first, all this red leather looks so cool. This is such a sweet looking interior. I know I'm biased because I have the same interior, but it's really nice. I don't sit back here in my Mazda 3 really ever, so it's kind of a cool, different perspective. This is where I would sit as a driver. I've got some knee room. I've got a little bit of headroom. I'm 5'10", so if you're any taller than that, it was going to feel a little cramped. Padding is nice in these seats, feels pretty good. The big upside from the Mazda 3 with the CX-30 would be that you have vents back here, so you get some airflow. Now, my Mazda 3 hatchback has a dark headliner, which makes it feel a little more premium. However, this lighter color definitely makes it feel more open. I think you'd really feel like you're in a cave if this was a dark headliner. And then when it comes to storage, in the back door here, we do have room for a water bottle. Now, a lot of the vehicles in this class have been updated recently. The Kia Seltos, the Hyundai Kona, the Corolla Cross, the Volkswagen Taos, they've all been refreshed and they are a little more modern, but this still feels like the classiest interior, that's for sure. And if you're looking for something fun and zippy, the CX-30's just got a little bit more character to it compared to other vehicles in this class that are a little bit sluggish and slow. Now, people looking at a CX-30 are going to wonder, should I buy the turbo? Is it worth it? Well, it kind of depends what your needs are. You got to go test drive both and just kind of feel it out. Because I've had the turbo for 4 years, I would pay the extra money to get that. I do enjoy the extra torque that that vehicle has. It's really nice on the highway for lane passing, and it's really nice out here in the country. But this still feels pretty zippy, to be honest. And it's in the city, it's perfectly fine. 191 horsepower for a vehicle this size is still pretty good. Now, you're going to be able to get better fuel economy in this non-turbo version. I'm getting about 8 liters per 100 kilometers right now, which I have been pushing the vehicle. For most of the week, I was averaging around 7.5 liters per 100 kilometers, and that was a big mix of highway driving. But now that I've been kind of just in the city and country roads, and I've been giving it the gas quite a bit for these shots, I'm at 8.5 liters per 100 kilometers. So, all right, so I have filled the tank from empty, and it cost about $50 Canadian here, and that was regular fuel. If you buy the turbo, you can put premium fuel in to get better horsepower and torque numbers. 93, obviously it's going to cost a little bit more. I find it almost costs $70 to fill my Mazda 3 turbo with 93 octane. Kind of obviously depends on what the price is. Lately, I think it's been in the 60 to 70 range, so it'll be about exactly the same with the CX-30 turbo. So it's not the most fuel efficient vehicle in this class, but it is also not the most bland or dull. It has some character to it. But because this is a bit of a sportier ride than most vehicles in this class, it's a little bit stiffer. You're going to feel the bumps a little bit more than you would in some other vehicles. Like the Corolla Cross is really soft ride. They all really prioritize kind of the soft feel, whereas Mazda's like, hey, we just want to have fun. And they stiffen up their vehicles. This kind of goes for when you're comparing Mazda to any of its competition. They always opt for the driving experience. Same situation here with the CX-30. It handles really well. So if that's something that you're into, you will like the CX-30. If you're looking for a vehicle that has a soft ride, then the CX-30 may not be for you, but I haven't found it to be that bad, to be honest. And another big key thing is the steering is heavy. Definitely heavier than most vehicles in this class. So turning in the parking lot's going to be a little bit harder than it would be in a Corolla Cross, that's for sure. but it handles so well. And the body control on this thing is great. This has G-Vectoring Plus, so that helps with some of the understeer that a lot of these front-wheel drive vehicles will have. It's great. So what are some negatives? Because I'm kind of hyping up the CX-30 a lot. There is a pretty interesting rattle coming from the dash. I don't recall hearing this in the turbo one I had. Definitely noticeable out here on sort of the jittery roads. It's not terrible, and especially if you have your music on, you're not going to hear it. The other negative is maybe the fuel economy is not quite as good as other cars in this class, and there's no hybrid option yet. But this is kind of an older platform now for Mazda, and maybe they'll give you a hybrid when they update the CX-30. Now, a big complaint people have about the Mazda 3 hatchback is the blind spot from how it's designed. I've never found it to be a huge issue with mine. You have so many safety systems, this thing will beep at you if anybody's in your blind spot. But it is a little bit better in the CX-30 because you have a tiny little window back there, whereas you don't have that in the Mazda 3 hatchback. But otherwise, the visibility feels fairly similar. The windows are pretty small, that is one thing to note, but I kind of like it. I kind of like the go-kart feel of the CX-30. Now, braking feel is very similar to my Mazda 3 in that I wish they were a little bit grabbier. Once you get used to the brakes on sort of the CX-30 or the Mazda 3, then it's okay. But that initial, you do have to push into them a bit more than some vehicles. It's really nice that every CX-30 comes with iActive all-wheel drive. This is a front-wheel drive bias system, but the all-wheel drive system can send 50% of power to the rear wheels. I think it's when it detects slippage, really. It's not a full-time all-wheel drive system, but it's a lot of fun in the winter. With my Mazda 3, I can do drifts and stuff in the snow. If you get a good set of winter tires, this is a very good system. Well, you can't go wrong if you get the turbo or this naturally aspirated one. They're both pretty fun and zippy to drive around. The turbo is obviously just a lot quicker, so it's more fun. But this is also fun. So don't feel like you need to buy the turbo if all you're doing is driving around the city. Anyways, that's all I've got to say about this Mazda CX-30. Pretty cool little car, and I enjoyed it more than I thought I would, that's for sure. Anyways, that's the end of this video, and we will see you soon.